Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Rob Aldridge, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, Rob's a musician, and I think you guys are going to love talking to him. The mowers and the hedge trimmers are going right now, so I'm going to shut up and let Rob introduce himself. And Rob, if you would, answer this question. Tell us about the Northern Alabama music scene. I'm going to shut up and put myself on mute.
Well, back in the 60s, Rick Hall was very instrumental in, creating some hits and really there's a lot of black people and white people coming together at a time when that wasn't typical, and especially in an area where it wasn't typical. And it's the history runs deep, and it's an amazing place to live. You know, they made that movie about it, Muscle Shoals, a few years back, and really the history is great and a lot of fun to learn about, but there's a lot of great stuff currently happening as well. I wish they'd make a sequel.
When you talk about Muscle Shoals, can you give us just a little bit of a background? I mean, because it's one thing to say, black and white folks playing together. This is Alabama we're talking about in the 60s, 70s. We made beautiful music as a nation during that time.
Yeah.
So we kind of only see the negative sides of things, but there was real progress being made.
Yeah, for sure. And, you had guys like Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett and, guys like that come through. Aretha recorded here. And it's really, the funny thing is a lot of those guys that played on those records, the Swampers is, that line and the Lynyrd Skynyrd song, Sweet Home Alabama, they were referring to the studio musicians that were here, David Hood and, Spooner Oldham, Barry Beckett and those guys, and it got Jimmy Johnson and, but they were white guys, and they were, not particularly, cool white guys necessarily. I mean, I think they're awesome, but at the time, it was kind of shocking for a black artist to come in and, have some white dudes be so funky and soulful and do such great work. It's really interesting stuff. I think there was a story of, I don't know if it was Paul Simon or Rod Stewart, but one of those guys came in, after the history and reputation was pretty established, and they were hanging out in the studio for a while, waiting on the black musicians to show up before they realized that they were already there. There's the white guys hanging out in the studio was what he was there for. But, and they're all such sweet guys. Unfortunately, we've lost a few of them in the last few years. But David Hood's still here. I know him. Spooner Oldham's still here. Spooner's especially got a resume that just blows my. I mean, I learn more about the guy all the time. It's pretty cool stuff.
There's a time, especially back then, when you can have a regional hit. The radio stations were run by local folks. Maybe you had a big, like 40,000 watts of power coming out of Nashville or something like that. But
yeah,
for the most part, you had to speak to your community, and we didn't have this pre-programmed, pre-recorded, DJs are really irrelevant kind of thing like we do now. What does a band do to get past that? Like the ability just to make a living regionally, and then of course, take your shot nationally or tour regionally. That kind of it's been redefined and it's been changed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can't necessarily say that I've got it figured out, but it's a labyrinth of things, and especially now with the internet and things are changing all the time and changing faster than they used to. It used to be for almost a generation, things would be done one way. And, maybe change would gradually happen. Now it seems like things are changing year to year. And it's hard for me to get a hold of it. I'm very much an analog minded type of person, and it's cool in the sense that you can control your own destiny to a degree. But, I also am thankful to have come up in a time, sort of the old way of doing it, where, and it's forced me over the years. I feel really confident and strong in my performance abilities. And, a lot of these people that are blowing up overnight on TikTok or whatever, I think that's great, more power to them. But when it comes down to it, can you go hit a stage for 3 hours and hold a crowd in the palm of your hand? And so I'm thankful for some of my old school upbringing in the business, but yeah, it's always changing. And I think you just got to get out and play shows. And it's always great to organically build your audience and then use the tools of the internet to branch out with that, just to sort of amp it up a little more, make it happen faster. But it's difficult, man. It's a constant struggle. And, there's all these different things that change, and, you need something else in order to be successful in this aspect of it, but it all costs money and no one is making any. Everyone's getting paid, for these services they provide to musicians and artists, but except the artists, the people actually making it happen. And so it's a struggle, and it's a lot of chicken and egg, what comes first, like if you need a booking agent, well, a booking agent don't want to take you on until you're already out playing, so many shows a year. But it's like, but you got to get booked to do that. It's just a lot.
It's the same thing in our field. Anybody can start a podcast literally with your phone, and you don't have to even do that. You can just make a TikTok video. And matter of fact, if it's less than a minute long, all the better. We'll push you in front of someone who spent hours to craft a song, and that's the marketplace that we're in. And you're right. Everybody's always telling me that I need to go. Matter of fact, yesterday, Amazon Music said, hey, we love your podcast, which is, it's BS because it's a form letter. And here are some tools how you can promote Amazon Music on your website. And I'm like, well, why? And I wrote a letter back because you're like, it's the outreach person. And so I reach back and I go, hey, I'm reaching back. And nothing bad about Amazon, but you're asking me to promote your site. I get paid for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's you want to use my podcast to bring people into your store. Well, that costs money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not inclined to help you. Well, yeah, I can optimize for Alexa. Maybe I'll do that because there's some point in that. I'm not going to push anybody. Listen, if you're watching my show right now, the best place right now today to watch it, it's on Amazon. Go to Amazon. I'm not sorry. It's YouTube. Go to YouTube. Yeah. Amazon's fine. Go listen there. But I don't make any money from that, right? And so they want me to promote their product. They want me to bring people to their store. But when I look and you have the chance to maybe be featured on our Instagram page. And then I go to the Instagram page and there are as many followers basically as I have. They don't even have 10,000 followers on the Amazon, feature page. And they don't say, here's how you do it and get featured. They just say, maybe like I'm going to spend however much time it takes to fill this thing out. And I don't mean to be salty, but I'm illustrating for the audience. Like, all these people want your attention and time. Everybody's going to give you more to do. You're like, I didn't get into playing the guitar to go on to TikTok. God bless. Go to TikTok and make all the money you want. Make videos there and everything. But you want to make beautiful music. I want you to be an analog dude.
Yeah. I mean, and I know people that, handling things like TikTok and keeping your Instagram up to date and and they generate genuine, funny, good content, on a consistent basis, but they're wired that way and I'm not. And and so then and I feel like when you start trying to force that, I don't think it's going to go over well anyway, because it seems disingenuous, and it's like I'd rather be authentic, and feel comfortable doing something like that before, rather than force it. But
And I'm going to be unfair to folks who program beautiful songs on digital things. I love that you've got your hand wrapped around the neck of the guitar, spending your time, and you're just, letting music kind of happen, and you find like, hey, here's a lick, here's a chord progression, here are a couple of notes and a solo. And then it's as if you're taking a piece of raw wood and you're just working it with your hand, and you're like letting that piece of wood become the thing that it's going to be. I didn't realize I was making a spoon today. But
yeah,
you make a spoon. This guy, his company's called Martin Shapes, and he makes surfboards, but he also has all this extra resin from his product. I had him on the show, and he's like, oh my gosh, I've got this resin. I can make earrings from this leftover surfboard resin, or I can make beer pull tabs for taps. And so he makes all these things, and he doesn't know what it's going to be. He just knows that these things that were almost a surfboard, they're still valuable. And I'm going to make these things and sell them on Etsy. I got all kinds of time for folks like you guys who take something that doesn't exist and you make it out of thin air.
Yeah, I mean, and I channel my artistic, stuff in a lot of different ways as well. I do a lot of artwork, and I did the cover of the record that we just put out, and I do my own posters and stuff. But it's like all this stuff, it's easy for me to do it. That's an easier way for me to self-promote, because it's like it's still connected in my brain to the music as well in some weird way, so who better to capture the vibe of what I'm going for musically, as far as like, making a picture, an image, than me, and I wonder too, if a lot more people are capable of that and just haven't, given a chance to tap into it. But it really is all very much a synergistic thing happening, with the different mediums of art. But as far as songwriting and stuff goes, I mean, yeah, I can't even remember a time where my brain wouldn't just check out and start writing songs. It's not so much a conscious effort, the revision and the effort put into shaping it down into what I want it to be is very much work that, I've had to perfect over the years. But as far as writing a song goes, I don't know, that part of it, I couldn't get away from it if I tried.
Sometimes that's not a gift. I mean, it's a gift, but sometimes it's you need to piece of pride. And I think we've had Sly Stone on the show, and I think he suffers from this because he's got this just fountain of music that will always flow through him. And, over the years, drugs, whatever mental problems he might have, probably eroded his ability to really reliably produce something. It doesn't stop the flow, though, right? And so there's just a constant genius machine. And then he's, is he up to the capacity to get it out of him in a way that's healthy? And that's proven to be a struggle for him throughout his life.
It's definitely something my wife's had to learn to deal with, as far as me listening to her. I always go back to the movie Walk Hard, or, Dewey Cox and his wife are arguing. He starts looking off like, don't you dare write a song right now, Dewey. That part probably resonated with me more than any other part of that movie, because I mean, that's me to a T. I'll just check out. My eyes will just glaze over, and I don't know what's happening around me.
That's like John Denver goes out and gets into a big old argument with his wife, probably hits her in the face, and then writes a beautiful song for her on the ski lift. And like, we find a different path. But music comes out of all of these things: conflict.
Oh yeah.
Struggle, you've lost a friend, to a drug overdose. I mean, these things. Look, my brother, my brother died in October, and
I'm sorry, man.
Best things I've ever written, from such a powerful place because of his passing. As I tried to deal with it, and sure, I'm putting my things out, but the people that come back and are like, "Man, you made me cry. I felt what you felt before," and they identify with it, and so you do need these experiences for a guy like you to create something.
For sure. And, something else that's really fun for me as far as writing songs goes, and I thought about it too. I listened to your earlier today, actually, your episode with Don Frazier, which was, I love history stuff. But y'all were talking about it's really hard to accurately portray history and in the present, tell the story, because you're only getting small pieces of it and you're getting sides of it. And I think that's kind of, for me, maybe why I enjoy history and enjoy writing songs, is because creatively I fill in those gaps of might not be part of the history book, but like I'll think about like, what was that person thinking about in that moment, and it's the little details, like, how slowly they might walk towards a battlefield. If you're talking about, I think y'all are talking about Buffalo Soldiers, or just the little passing moments in time, the little thoughts they might have. And, and that's what's so much fun about songwriting too, is it's freedom, and you can plug yourself into it, and from your perspective, see things through their perspective. And I don't know, it's just a lot of cool stuff about songwriting.
I'm fascinated. Thanks for mentioning Don Fraser, by the way. That guy's great. I'll put a link to that show in there. I love talking about history, because when you have someone writing about their time then, if they had the inclination and they get paid enough to write. I mean, we have Grant's autobiography, partly because he needed money and someone was willing to pay him. But the dude who probably could write the best autobiography never got to write it, because there's no money in some farmer telling his tale, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to hear it.
Yeah.
And you also only get the best that Grant or Rob has on that given day. How many times as an artist you're like, I can't get this, I don't know what to do with this sound, or I just don't like this turn of phrase. I wish I could make this smoother, but it is time to move on. And so you get the best effort that you have that day. And it impacts what, like, how many times have you gone back and looked at something you made years and years ago, and you're like, oh man, you know what? This is good, but I didn't nail it. And that's, we're all like that, right? It's good enough, it goes out, but please don't look at this as being my best work, because I still would do revisions on it if I
Absolutely. was. And more so than that, a lot of I've been at it a long time, and I still have a lot of people that, saw me get started, come out to shows and ask for these songs I wrote when I was like 14, 15 years old. And, not only do I feel like it's not my best work, but it's like, I can't even relate with this guy anymore. Like I would go back and kick his ass if I could. I don't want to, try and tap into those emotions anymore. I just can't. But it's weird. But yeah, the history stuff is pretty fascinating. Also, if you get a chance, you're asking about the history of Muscle Shoals beyond music. I mean, it's a really fascinating town. You got the TVA, that was such a huge deal after the Depression, part of the New Deal. And you got the Wilson Dam, which actually started out powering like nitrate facilities for bombs during World War I. And then the TVA acquired it. And it's a lot of cool stuff around this town too. I know you're a history buff, I've gathered, so you should go check it out.
Yeah, actually, every year we do a veteran ride, which is coming up in July. It's for Save the Brave. We call it Ride for the Brave, and we work on raising money to prevent veteran suicide. And we go through Alabama every year, but we're more like A to B focused, and we don't go up over to Muscle Shoals or down to Montgomery like we should.
Yeah.
We need to stop and see you guys along the way and let you throw us a party and raise some money and then move on to the next thing. But I totally agree. That documentary is wonderful. And you realize all these places where all this magical music happens, it's probably tenfold beyond that. But no one had the money to make a movie about whatever it was. Seattle can get a movie made. Muscle Shoals can get a movie made. Yeah. Of course, LA can get a bunch of movies made. But what about those other spots in, South Bend, or some other small place where they have a real music scene, but no one's got $500,000 to make a documentary about it?
Well, even just like the individuals in these documentaries, like this Muscle Shoals documentary, for instance, is a perfect example. I was in the scene where they're filming Percy Sledge, saying "When a Man Loves a Woman." That guy was fascinating. We got to talk to him some off camera, and he started out, he was like a nurse and was singing to patients, and that's that was it. But like all these people, that their own lives could be entire movies or, binge worthy series. It's, we're only scratching the surface. There's a lot out there.
When you try to look at making music and making a living these days, we had some of your peers from your PR company were on the other day, Lord Nelson, and we were talking about just being a blue collar band. And when they go on the road, they come back, they got more money than they started. If someone subs in, that person gets paid. They're not paying in beer and exposure. They actually can make money. Now, it's not $500,000 a year per person, right? But they're actually able to hire a PR firm, for example. These things, these are echelons above, like we're getting started and just playing any bar that will take us. They say no to gigs because it's like, hey, we don't have to say yes to everything. We've reached this level. And they're available, but they also know what they're worth. What are your thoughts on that overall thing? And how do you see your work and your band doing that?
We are sort of, I feel like we're right on the cusp of sort of getting to that level where, we had some help hiring this PR firm. It wasn't necessarily something I could just afford to do. We're not on a label. But after, our bass player passed away, we just felt really driven to give this record the best shot we could. But we sort of dipped, above and below that line of being selective and making money and things like that. And, that goes on for a long time. It's been going on for a long time with me too. Some years you're flush and things are going great, and some years you can't catch a break. My deal, I gave up a long time ago on, of course, when you're a kid, you want to be a rock star, you want to have a mansion and you want to party and then, reality slowly just takes you, and it's all those dreams have been whittled down to, okay, I don't have a choice but to do this. This is who I am. This is what I do. And the goal now is to just be able to afford to keep doing it. And, and like I said, as far as making records and promoting and getting your stuff out there, everyone's making money, but the artists a lot of times. And so it's a struggle, there's a path to get to that point where you are okay, but I certainly don't have any, delusions about being a, millionaire rock star or something like that. It's like, if I can get enough people to fill up, 300, 400 capacity rooms and, because also the real payment is, playing your songs and people coming along with you for that ride and being able to connect. And it's just the best feeling in the world, and that's really just trying to make sure I can afford to keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm in a very similar boat. My show is fantastically successful, especially if you look at all of Podlandia, the guests that we've had. I've had Sly Stone on the show, and
cool stuff.
It's incredible, right?
Like I said, I'm a new fan. Like, when I always try and do a little homework on, whoever I talk to when something like this gets set up. And this was like, oh, not only am I, going to continue to read up about this, I think I'm going to be a new fan for sure. You got a great one.
Thanks, man. And the thing is, like, as you try to do these things, you wait for these moments. And in the meantime, and I know you'll resonate with this, my life is so incredibly fulfilling. Yes, I would love to. And everybody's like, you're on the cusp, you're going to break out. It's not, don't worry about the money. In the meantime, I have to worry about the money because you need enough to get by. And even if I doubled my income today, I'd still need to double it again to really get to a real pile of money. And you would never pick, in terms of podcasting, this is for me, you would never pick this path. I'm going to start a business that barely survives all the time, and we'll have our ups, we'll have our downs. And then over the time, it'll slowly build. And I look back, you cannot replicate my success. I've been doing this too long. However, you can certainly exceed my income goals, because the market is more developed now, right? And so I am in this spot where I have largely made it. I can book people. I have PR agencies that come out to me all the time. and the next thing might be the thing. You never know. But I don't do it for that reason anymore. Yes, at first you're like, yeah, we're going to make a bunch of money on Amazon selling books. And we make a little bit of money there, but nothing to brag about. But the overall artistry of it, the conversations, the enrichment, to talk to Don Frazier and have Don Frazier become my friend, or just any number of these people that have become my friends that I want to interact with, it's irreplaceable. It's incredibly valuable, this show.
They can't take it from you. It's something that and that's kind of, I've found myself in that position too. I might not be on the biggest stages or doing the most, glamorous things with my career right now. But I tell you what, you don't want to follow my band because, and I mean, not saying everybody, I mean, I know my limitations, but I also am perfectly aware of what I'm capable of. And I wouldn't have gotten that without just grinding it for more than half my life, and that's why it's so fulfilling. You put in the work and you can do it.
Yeah, you build something, right? And you don't always get to pick what that something is. And, just to have enough of a support network to have someone help you figure out a PR firm. I mean, that's a game-changing thing, as you get on shows, because you will add a little bit of influence to what you guys do, and maybe you get on a better stage next year at this festival. Maybe you get to that next festival or whatever it is. And at festivals, heck, if I was you, like any festival you want to put me in, I'm going to go, because I'm going to win fans there, because I know how to get on a stage and make people stop and pay attention. I mean, that's
the journey itself. You can't schedule life-changing encounters with people you don't even know exist until you just go out there and run into them, or it's both frustrating and exciting, because you feel like you need to go out and you need to be a part of things, because you never know what's going to happen, and a lot of times nothing happens. But if you're not there, I mean, something always finds you that can help you, and but you got to be out doing it for sure.
You got to be out doing it for sure. One of the things that I like to do is I put people that should know each other together, because that's one of the values that I get from my show. And I invest that into other people, because I'm valuable to Rob, and I'm like, hey man, you ought to know so-and-so. And you're like, fuck yeah, that's, even if you don't do anything, just the fact that you create these opportunities for something to happen. So, this young lady I know, she's a fantastic singer, and she's young and she's doing it. She's super excited. And anytime I can, I try to put her in front of an industry pro, because she's beautiful, she's young, and she can sing. This is a package that sells.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just keep at it and keep meeting people, and someone's going to be like, you know who we need? I met this girl the other day, and bam, you start a life that's, she's not that old. She's young, in her early 20s. But imagine if, 20 years from now, if she's met the right 1,000 people, they can explode her career. Or even if you're working for, like, for example, like David Foster, right? David Foster always has some young, beautiful singers in his group, and they get to make money and learn how to be a pro. Oh my God, the best kind of practice that there is while you make money and you work for one of the legends of the music industry.
Yeah. And also, a lot of times, and maybe even more times than not, the really meaningful connections that amount to something long predate the actual opportunity. Like I've made connections with people that were just people at the show who later went on to get involved in something that presented me an opportunity down the road, and you just never know. You never know what's going to happen with the person you met that you just developed a casual friendship with, or maybe you introduced that girl to someone who could help her, but they might not be interested at that moment. And timing is everything too, but down the road, something will click. It's like, oh, I know who I need to call for this. And it's fun. Like I said, it's exciting and equally frustrating,
But you're also not working at Walmart. You're not forced to, do something that is not your thing. Like, okay, it's one thing to work and create revenue to do the thing that you love, but and not be sure what it is or whatever. You know what you love. So no matter what else you're doing, your main effort is right here where it needs to be. Throwing up on a wall or, writing songs. And that is, again, this is where we're so far ahead of our peers in life, where I know that I am great at this. I know that this does things for other people. And so I'm just going to keep on creating it and let time and my hard work pay off,
Yeah. Yeah. Jimbo Hart from the 400 unit, Jason Isbell's band, is a good buddy of mine. And I think I texted him. I was kind of feeling in the dumps about how things were going, just feeling like, what's it all for? What am I doing? It's so hard. And he said something that it's popped back into my head over the years a few times. It's like, you just got to keep going. If you just don't quit, I think is what he said. Just don't quit. As long as you don't quit, something will amount to something, but you gotta keep going.
Sometimes it takes a while for that thing to germinate into an idea. So let's say I connect you to somebody in the music industry. I may have to remind that person, hey, don't forget, I sent you that email to Rob. Or you might have to follow up and say, hey, and then you say the right thing at the right time. We often lose track of people who are visibly very successful. They still need that phone call from that friend that's like, hey, man, I was thinking about you today and I thought I'd give you a call, not your birthday, nothing else, just because that always feels good. And these little extra moments I've found when you genuinely care about people and you act like it, boy, they really appreciate it. No matter how successful they are, even if they're just your friend, like, hey, you popped into my head and I'll be damned if I'm not going to send you a note when that happens. Because I wouldn't be mad if that happened to me. And there's no amount of famous where you don't want that. You don't want to be bugged, but when someone you care about or someone cares about you gets a hold of you, you like it. It's rewarding. So I learned that lesson by having this show.
Oh yeah, somebody.
Well, just in general, I never would have thought to do that. I could send a note to someone, without needing anything other than just to say, hey, I care about you. You popped into my head. I was thinking about you.
Yeah.
I didn't do that before this, but I realized by connecting people, these little interactions, these little moments, these little sparks of love and life and care, boy, they're enormously valuable. And they're just sitting there on the ground. All you got to do is just pick them up and go, hey, this is valuable.
Absolutely.
And turn it into something,
Yeah. And I'm horribly, I've got a 6-year-old and a 15-year-old and I'm grinding away. And so a lot of times, my friendships with people, we might go a while without checking in, but definitely try and just occasionally, and usually my best friends are the ones that, we can go a year without talking. And then when we do, it's like no time passed at all, and also, I try and talk to younger guys who are trying to get in the music industry. Cause, I had, when I was coming up, and I was really young and naive and wasn't doing everything right. But I wish that, there had been a few more people sort of just tell me things, they could have told me things and I wouldn't have had to learn some of these lessons the hard way, or I could have maybe gotten a little further, a little faster and not made some really expensive mistakes and things like that. And so I always try and definitely share what little I know with people who are just, who are where I was 10 years ago or whatever, do's and don'ts. Because, for the most part, nobody ever really told me what I should or shouldn't do. And so the trial and error has been pretty expensive,
Would you have listened if they did?
I think so. Because, unless they were telling me to do something that just wasn't me, I really wanted, I've always really just been curious about it. I like to, but, a lot of the stuff with the music industry, it seems like, I want to know how things work, but it's like, where do you even look? Where do you even go to find out, and so inevitably I just keep pushing ahead until, you'll fuck around and find out.
the other side of that thing, when you get advice thrown at you, everybody has great intention, but one of the things that people tend to do, at least for my end, the podcast side of it, is they will give me more work to do. I don't want for work, and everybody's got their patent solution. You're like, okay, I understand that you believe that this worked and maybe this worked for that person. And it's everything. It's like, do more, do less, do it better, do it, whatever it is, right? All these different versions of the same thing. And I'm like, that none of this is helping my specific thing. It is helpful, but I can't do every single bit of help. It's like when you go to if you go to a golf convention, where they're selling all the golf products. If you did every single thing in that room, you would shoot a number that was below 0 because everybody can give you a stroke back, you know? And it doesn't work that way. So you have to, at some point, find your own formula. And you do have to try a lot of things. So you have to make mistakes to get through the process.
Yeah.
Those mistakes are expensive. But then again, how else are you going to learn, right? Someone can provide you the solution right now and say, here's $100,000. I promise that you'll have a gold record at the end of the year. Well, now I have a different problem to solve. Now I've got a $100,000 problem I've got to go deal with.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, I want to say this too, and then I'm going to shut up. People want you to have an audience before they help you. But once I have an audience, I don't need you. That
is such a huge frustrating part about it, and I need to back up too. Not to say that no one ever gave me any advice that I didn't follow that didn't help. Of course there was always that, but there's also a lot of advice. It wasn't necessarily bad advice, but it's like in retrospect, this didn't pertain to me, and also, more than anything, I wish someone had told me when I was a teenager, stop trying to make a record, first of all, because you don't even know who you are yet. And stop trying to make a record so fast because no one is anxiously awaiting your first album. And, so you're going to rush this shit and it's not going to be what you want when it comes out. And it took me about 3 records of that before I, really figured out, take your time, but yeah, it a lot of trial and error, which is okay. I mean, that's life. And I'm not quitting. So
I'm still standing. That's what they say. I want to take a moment here. Everybody go to robaldridgemusic.com. You'll see all of the music there. And this is a spot where you can start to support the show and check out what they do. And just, whatever you listen on Spotify or Amazon Music or wherever it is that you go to listen, these are look, if you have your favorite bands and they're giant successful, make sure you put some money in those pockets. But go out and find these guys. If Rob's not your cup of tea, great. But go find someone and give them a lift. Give them a couple of bucks a month, $5, buy a shirt, buy a CD. I'm going to ask Robbie in a second here, like, what's the most direct way to help Rob? Because this is special what he's doing. And if he's and he wants his kind of people. So if you're his kind of people, then what are you waiting for? Here's Rob right here. And let's do that. Same thing, by the way, applies for the Break It Down Show. Go to breakitdownshow.com, go into the PayPal link and just hit that. And then look, $5, $10 a month from 1,000 people, that will go a long way for me towards, being able to hire a PR firm or do more marketing or all the things that I want to do, to buy a tank of gas. I'm not even joking.
Oh yeah. Nowadays, it's like on my way to the PR meeting, I all of a sudden can't afford them anymore.
I know, it's crazy. And legitimately, like that $100 bill that seems to show up because I do have an audience and they do give me fantastic support financially, or they'll say, hey, I don't have this, but I have that. And I'm like, I'll take that, whatever that is. That could be a meeting. It could be anything. So look at Rob's stuff, go over there, hit the website. What's the best way, most direct way to support you, Rob? Like what is that thing?
I mean, it just depends on how you feel about the band. I mean, Bandcamp, if you're going to download our record, I don't know if it's like once a month or how often, but they pick a Friday and they give the artist 100% of the money. They don't take a cut. And so that's a good way to actually buy my music and me get the full amount for it. But any band, people don't understand how, what a headache merch is for guys at my level. It's really expensive to make it happen. And you feel so naked when you're at a show and you're, especially if you're on a bill with somebody who's got like this big extravagant merch table, and you know, all you've got left are like smalls and triple XLs, and you know, and you can't, and you're just sitting there, or you know, you stop bringing merch because no one ever buys it, and then you I don't know, then the day you don't bring it with you, somebody comes up to you and it's like, you should have merch. I would buy something. But definitely go, if you see a band with merch, go buy their damn merch. And you know, and really, I probably make as much money from tips as I do anything, because just somebody who can and is able, you know, don't, if you can't tip somebody, then don't do it. But if you can, oh my God, I've had a few instances of somebody, you know, dropping $100 bill in a tip bucket, and you have no idea how far that can go. You really don't. But
it's also that shot from the dark. You're like, holy cow, someone just put $100 bill in here. You know, like, it's just,
yeah,
I don't care how much money you have. Someone folds up 100 and sticks it in your cup.
yeah. I mean, after expenses, I might not even be making $100 after the gig, you know?
Right,
So I mean, you might double what I make that night, and I mean, and that's just huge. And you know, usually a lot of people are, you know, do live streams and stuff, and have like a Venmo or a PayPal, and go in there and throw them a few bucks, like you were saying. You know, it's a huge thing. I had to do a lot of those live streams during the pandemic, and oh my God, man, it's rough. It was really cool at first because I'm just like in my house playing music, and then I had this money in my account. But after a while, it's like you're not playing for anyone. You don't have that connection. It's soul sucking. But it was survival mode, you know. And I was very fortunate to have a few angels out there just, you know, toss me a bone during a really rough time.
Yeah. God bless them. I love the angels, the folks like that. You know, one of the things I do is if, and I'm not made out of money by any means, but I try to extend this gratitude to other folks too. But if I go out, the bill's small enough, I just make the tip 100%. You know,
yeah.
And so if
Absolutely.
it's a bill, I'll just pay you an extra $8. You know, because why not, right? Like, put some of that in somebody else's hand. Again, I'm not made out of money, so I can't do that all the time. But well, why not? If it's $100 bill, you know what? I've got $200, and I bet you could use this $100 that I have. And maybe I'm too generous, but I do try to do these things, you know, and I try to support the bands and the acts, and I don't let a lot of subscriptions that I have for things linger if I'm not using them. You know, I turn them off, and that money right there, that $100 that someone's wasting a month on something they don't even use, man, turn around and, you know, throw Rob 5 of it, you know, whatever.
yeah, man. Or, you know, like you said, even if you're not into what I'm doing, there's somebody out there struggling with the same shit I am that you probably would enjoy more, and go help them. You know, it's it's a tough time for guys like me, but it could be a hell of a lot worse. I'm not gonna cry about it.
Well, the thing I love about what you're doing is you work at it. You know, this isn't like, hey, why haven't I made it yet? You're like, no, I'm working hard. You know, this will get figured out, and we get it. Sometimes we're flush, sometimes we're thin, but you're also not afraid of the hard work. That's one of the things I always say, like, about the podcast, is if you have any doubt about how much I work, come on and hang out with me for 4 or 5 days. You know, and then, like, leave me the hell alone. You work too damn hard.
Yeah,
$15, leave me alone. Bert put a question up here. He feels that rock and roll is dead, and I don't know about that, because rock and roll kind of is what is. Here's how we define rock and roll in this show. When someone shows up to date your daughter, if you're like, no, that person cannot, you know, that's rock and roll, right? Like, so it might be a rapper, it might be somebody else, but if you're uncomfortable with it, it means you are now part of the establishment and the rock and roll. That's how I see it. But
okay.
More importantly, what are the young acts like? How often do you get to go out and see other acts up there in Alabama and that kind of area?
Well, first of all, I don't think rock and roll is dead so much as I think labeling music by genres is dead. Because, you know, to me, rock and roll is more of an umbrella term for a lot of different things. It's more about, for me, rock and roll is being authentic and true to yourself, and and fighting back against things that aren't right. But yeah, I mean, I get out as much as I can. It's been harder. I think it's going to get a little easier. My youngest is getting a little older, and after the pandemic, I kind of became way more of a homebody than I ever was. But I'm venturing out a little more and trying to go catch some bands. There's some really great indie rock bands here in the Shoals. There's a little label here called Single Lock that John Paul White from the Civil Wars and Ben Tanner, who was in the Alabama Shakes, and they've got some cool young rock bands. There's one called The Prescriptions that I think are really cool. And so whenever I can, I try and go catch stuff like that, because it's really neat to see. I feel like people are just spoon fed so much stuff, like what they listen to, and I get bored with things really fast. So I do, like, I inherently just need to go and see stuff as much as I can, but it's slowed down a little bit because of my circumstances, but I'm trying to get back out there and do it a little more. Uh-oh, I lost you.
That's because I got mute on set an airplane. I'm always encouraging folks. They're probably sick of me saying it, but I'm going to keep saying it until you guys all start doing it. Go out and see live stuff. It doesn't have to be Rob, but whatever. We've got it's Orange County, so we've got everything. But we've got the Symphony Hall, and tonight there's an organ concert there. And I if at all possible, I will be there tonight. Yeah. Because I love seeing people perform. And we had on my chair back here, right here, that chair, the number one chair violin concert master for the Pacific Symphony, which is Orange County's symphony. That guy plays a $9 million Stradivarius.
Just go see it. Just go see the Stradivarius.
Yeah. And everybody in that band is an absolute pro. And it is look, maybe orchestra sounds boring to you, but I promise if you begin to develop an appreciation for it, it is not. It is incredible that music that's 200 years old, that was like the only form of live entertainment, really. And it still survives to this day. You will go on a journey in that concert hall. You will. If you really appreciate it. Live music, please.
I've seen some orchestra stuff only a couple times, unfortunately, but it really is, I don't necessarily ride around listening to classical music on NPR. I mean, occasionally I do. It's kind of cool, but when you go see it live, it is a powerful experience, because, you can feel what people were feeling hundreds of years ago watching that stuff too. And you can understand it. And I think that also, I feel like there's not much anything better than a rock and roll show too. I mean, I know we're talking about genres, but a good rock concert that just really kicks you in the gut, you laugh, you cry, it takes you for a ride. But as far as getting out too, I think a lot of people like me, and me and my wife were talking about our 16-year-old earlier. She's got a lot of anxiety about going out and doing things, like I would imagine a lot of younger people do. There's not much difference in the anxiety over something exciting and the anxiety over dread, but you just get yourself out, get out of your comfort zone, go see some live music, because it only gets easier, and you'll do it more and more from there, because it's just great. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, I don't want to minimize the risk of COVID and personal things. We're never doing that, but some of that anxiety is just, it's a habit, and it can be broken for sure. And listen, it's just, you're not going to regret it. You go out to see a show, even if you see a bad show,
you got a story. You did
it. I'm going to tell those guys. You know what I'm going to do in a couple of weeks here, end of April. I'm going to see Dave Chappelle live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, hell yeah!
I mean, come on. There's no more successful. He's probably the greatest performing comedian of all time. And in the Hollywood Bowl, which is one of the best venues I've ever been to, come on, but you do that by going, I'm going to go see this. And it isn't that much money. It isn't that, I'm not made of money, and I can't do these things all the time, but I can scratch together, $100 and go out and see the show.
How about that last special he put out? I mean, I know it ruffled a lot of feathers on both sides of all arguments, it seems like, but I thought it was brilliant. I mean,
it's his job, right? Is to get us thinking about stuff and talking about it. And you don't got to agree with them. go make your own stuff and get Netflix to pay. That's the other thing. When Rolling Stone makes a list of like the most successful or the most whatever is, they're setting the bar. You didn't even know they needed a bar there. They're like, here's where it is, and then you're forced to talk about it. I've been consuming who's the GOAT, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I don't know. I don't care, but I can't stop listening to these guys talk about it, and they've set the bar. Maybe it's Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know. It could be anybody, but because they started that conversation, so. Go create your own thing. Go create your own conversation. Go create your own music. Anybody can write a song right now.
That's rock and roll to me. Yeah. That's, pushing boundaries, and it ain't about what kind of guitar you got or how slow or fast a song is. It's, are you pushing? Are you pushing, or are you, just complacent? And I'm not complacent.
Yeah. We had Kai from Lord Nelson Band on just the other day, and we were talking about lyric writing. And one of the things we were mentioning, I don't know the exact number, but I believe Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix has 70 total words in the song. 7. That's a long paragraph,
Yeah.
Waylon wrote a song called Storms Never Last. It's got one chorus and one verse. He repeats the chorus 3 times in the song. That's it.
Yeah, I was talking about that. Do you remember that band in the late 90s? They were kind of one-hit wonders. They had like one record, but they're called Fastball.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You remember Fastball? And I can't remember which song it was, but yeah, it's got one short verse, and then they just sing the chorus 3 more times after that.
Yeah.
But you don't realize it. You're just jamming. And then I think I tried to learn the song, and I was like, for real, that's it? Like 3 lines of verse, and then they just repeat everything over and over again.
Yeah, that's like a George Harrison song. No knock on George Harrison, but if he finds a hook, he will not let you off of it. He was like, he's going to stay in this hook. The lyrics don't matter. I'm just going to keep you on this hook.
And write it out. Cause you can tell if you're a decent songwriter, you can feel when it gets, when it needs to stop, and then when you start, especially if you start feeling that, whoever's listening to you do it is going to start feeling that. They'll feel you feel it. And I don't know. That's a beautiful thing about a live performance too. But yeah, I'm all about repeat the shit out of it if you want to. If it's working, if it's connecting. A lot of times they'll repeat something, and every time they say it, it hits harder and harder. And yeah, why not keep it going?
One of the things I love to think about is the point of view of a lyric, right? And you write a song. So you can write a love song, but each one seems to be in this sphere of like, is it the love going this way? Is it reciprocated? Is the love just going out? Is it this kind of, so like this today, a song popped into my head this morning. I thought I should write it down. I didn't, but it was about making love, but not to you, for you. All day long, I'm going to make love for you, and it's going to be these things. And it's like, I'd never thought about that before.
Yeah, it could be a really twisted, I don't know, story of infidelity too.
Absolutely, you can turn that song around for sure. That's the beautiful thing about these multiple perspectives, right? It's just,
yeah. I try and I appreciate just a good old fashioned simple love song as much as the next person, but I have a hard time with it just because I really try and probably try too hard not to just do something that's been beaten to death. And but like you said, the perspective, like if I write a love song, I'm going to touch on the warts and all of the story, or make something up, and just come at it from a different angle if I can. But yeah, you can, I was saying earlier, the freedom of writing songs is so great. There's a song on my record, Mean Grass, that's not a specific story. It's just a story that could happen in a town like the town it's based in. And it's powerful stuff. A lot of people hear it. I think it actually got an explicit label online. And I was like, I don't even cuss in this song. And it was purely based on content because it's like a really dark story. But it's not true. It could have happened and just made it up, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what's fun about it.
Can we talk about the Proponents for a few minutes? Because I don't want to just make this about the Rob song. Because you've got a band.
Please.
How fluid are the Proponents? I mean, because again, everybody's trying to figure this out. You might have to go do that job for a while and come back in 5 years, or maybe you're having a kid. You're right in the heart of being a parent, right? You know, not until that second kid gets to be about 20 are you going to be able to ease off the gas parent-wise, right? So talk about the Proponents. How do you pick them? How do you guys stay together? What do you do?
Well, it kind of started with me and Rob Malone, the lead guitar player. I was really young. We've been playing together for about 15 years. He's quite a bit older than I am, but you wouldn't know it. He's like a freaking vampire. He doesn't age. But super brilliant guitar player. I've learned a lot from him over the years. And we kind of started as a duo. And then, you know, Stone came in the fold. And I don't know, we made that first record and our drummer quit right after it came out. And that sort of turned into a battle that in some ways I feel like we're still trying to recover from, because, you know, it just really pulled the rug out from under us. You know, it's one thing to replace a guitar player or even a singer, but, you know, when you've got to replace a member of the rhythm section, it's really tough. And we had really tough songs to learn. You know, usually a drummer who would be up to the challenge of figuring some of those songs out on that first record were making big bucks with somebody else, and we weren't in a position to do that. So, but yeah, the drummer we have now, you know, he's got a pretty steady job. He does construction stuff. And then, you know, Matt Ross, who replaced Stone, he and God bless him, you know, he's wonderful. And without him, I mean, we were dead in the water. But you know, he's had like a regular day job for 20 years. So, you know, I love the lineup as it is right now. But, you know, if we have to, whatever we have to do to keep going, we're going to do it. Hopefully we can keep going as we are, but, you know, shit happens. One thing that's pretty solid though is me and Rob Malone are both equally dedicated to, you know, seeing this thing through. And that's what's really unfortunate about losing Stone Anderson. You know, he was with us too. We were going to see it all the way to the end.
Yeah. And Stone's the guy that you lost along the way. And this is, you know, I don't want to get too deep into this. We'll run out of time, but I do want to touch on it. Angelo Moore, the lead singer from Fishbone's been on the show. And he's like, you know, we all in this industry, you sit on the edge of the blender and at some point you've got to jump in. Yeah. And you watch your friends jump in and you're like, oh, you jumped in kind of deep, you know, and you all get nicked up. You all get something back that's not good from this is a hard industry.
Yeah.
To stand out, to survive, the access to things that you would never have access to before. And if you have any kind of weakness in your game, it can be exploited, right? Look, part of the deal with making it and getting a record contract is knowing that initially the record company is absolutely going to bend you over, right? Because that's how they survive. Is like, yeah, there's going to be 150 of you, and most of you are going to do nothing, you know, with us. And so we're going to take money hard from whoever does make it. And then the next deal, you can get a little more money, right? I mean, that's part of that blender. And you know it going in. Everybody knows. You might hope it's going to be different for you, but it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that was a question, but I agree. It definitely just, I mean, Stone was a really fascinating guy, and he jumped in both feet, hands first. I mean, you know, and he was kind of raising it too. His dad was with the 90s band Brother Kane, and he's currently the guitarist in Atlanta Rhythm Section. And, you know, he was around that lifestyle for a long time. And but Stone was brilliant and just felt the world. It was just heavier on him than it is on most people. And you know, not in like a weak way. He took it in, and man, he was so smart too. I mean, I don't know how he had time to do all the shenanigans he did while also becoming so smart. But he, it unfortunately, we all got nicked up, but I got a hold of him one night, the really sad thing is how it happened. It really could have been any of us.
Right.
It was just a pure unfortunate accident kind of thing. He really wasn't even doing anything wrong. I mean, there was drugs involved, but it wasn't like it sounds when you say drug overdose. It was, it shouldn't have happened like it did.
Yeah. And these are the things about life, right? It's part of that blade slinging and hitting you too. And it really can be. I mean, how many times he's like, that could have been me, or boy, I could have died right then, or whatever, right? And this innocent decision has these massive consequences, and there before the grace of God go on and on and on with all of these things. They exist because these tragedies exist, and it's just, it's how we grow. My brother passed away in October, and life got real heavy for him as well, and he'd had enough, and I don't blame him for that, because it was real. It wasn't getting better for him, in a way that would make kind of sense. And he had all the help, he had all the things. He just ran out of time, ran out of life. And
I certainly, stuff like that. I don't hold any, I don't know, ill will or resentment towards people who choose that route. Just, because I'm not them. I mean, there's no telling where they were. And on some levels, there's, an element of bravery to it almost, it's like, I don't know. Everybody's different. But I'm really sorry for your loss, man. That's tough. I've definitely, Stone was very much like my brother. And so I feel you, brother.
Yeah. Well, let's not close it on that. Let's close it on a positive note.
Yeah.
And, I would normally ask you, like, what have you changed since you lost Stones? I know what I've changed since I lost my brother, but let's go a different direction. What's next? What's next for Rob Aldridge and his wonderful music?
Oh, man. I've always got songs in the works. Like I said, I can't help it. It just happens. And I forget to do something my wife told me to do because I was writing a damn song. But no, I think definitely not saying I'm done with the Proponents or anything like that, but I've got some songs that might not necessarily fit in with what the Proponents do, and I've always wanted to go in the studio and like record songs and do all the instrumentation myself. Not necessarily because I'm proficient at all instruments, but I feel like I could write something for my tunes, and maybe my own limitations could lend itself to more of like a melodic kind of thing. It's kind of forced me to write simpler songs because I know, like, if I'm going to play drums on this, it better not be too crazy. So I really want to try to do that at some point. I mean, who knows when? I'm still trying to recoup some money that, went into this last record for sure. But hopefully it'll be something like that, and I've got a solo EP online as well. If you just look up Rob Aldridge, you should get all that and get the band stuff as well.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, go out and see live music. Go see guys like Rob. Go to robaldridge.bandcamp.com. Go to robaldridgemusic.com. Either of those places is a great place to get started. And look, if he's your thing, support it. Super simple, And if the Break It Down show's your thing, support it, whatever it is. All right, Rob, let me turn this thing up. Stand by.